People who are too smart for their own good. They've spent a lot of time immersing themselves in a certain language, in a certain skill set, in a certain world. And because of their deep immersion in this, it becomes difficult to communicate with the people that they need to communicate with. And the biggest problem that you're pointing out with is either I have too many stories or not enough stories, is that they don't know how to tell stories or why to tell stories and what the effect that we're intending to have. We know that they do a good thing and we know that we should tell them, but we don't actually recognize what we're trying to do, which is one of the reasons why people have such a hard time choosing a story to tell or actually getting to any kind of interesting point when telling a story.
You are listening to the number one real estate podcast in the world. We talk with real estate professionals all across North America about their wins, losses, lessons, and stories help you win in your local market today. My name is Cody from Sheridan Street. I'm joined with Vikram Deol of the Real Estate Sales Academy. Vikram Deol, what's happening? Every time I see you with the plant, I'm always like, man, how much did he spend on those plants? Are they real? I know that they're real. And if you're not listening on YouTube to this podcast, I recommend you go over to YouTube and take a look at Vikram's plants. If you do nothing else, if you don't listen to the podcast at all, just look at Vikram's plants. They're very beautiful, my friend. What's happening?
That was about $2,000.
Man,
it's $1,000.
You don't screw around with plants, eh?
Well, the whole background with installation and, we're not done. We have to figure out an irrigation system, but that whole background, because we painted the walls, which in hindsight, I kind of wish I didn't paint all the walls because it kind of sucks in all the light. So now we're trying to figure out the lighting systems.
Too little, too late.
Yeah, dude, it's just paint. It goes on real quick. But yeah, that was about $1,500, give or take, $2,000. That includes the Buddha. There's also some plants downstairs, so maybe $1,200 because I put a couple palm trees on the balcony and some cool like plants downstairs. But if you want to check out my favorite, so if you're not on YouTube, but check out this money tree. Look at
that's pretty sick.
Yeah, the base is really sick, but then it's got these great curls. The nice thing about that one is you can't really overwater it because the roots are exposed. So you just kind of spritz it. So I've been struggling with some of these plants behind me because some are every 2 days and some are once a week. So I'm going to have to get a plant expert here and have her rearrange the sections so that we can not overwater or underwater. But yeah, man, it's cool, dude. It's cool. Your place is, they can't see it, but your place looks pretty sick. We're actually, we're looking to start doing some live in studio or in home podcasting because we have some cool spaces. So I'm
now that we're all
situated,
probably over the next 2-3 months, I was chatting with the team about this today. I'm try to get somebody to come in, shoot some live in-house podcast. Now that you're situated in Medellin, I'm situated in Medellin. It's been I think the first time we've both been situated somewhere in the last 2-3 years. So it's nice to be
talking with Luisa's already looking for somebody. It's on her list of things to do. So it's really exciting. What's something cool in your world? I know normally we talk about what's cool in my world, but I know you're doing some cool things with your clients with YouTube ads and stuff like that. I've been your Slack channel. Kind of
really pumping YouTube ads right now. That's probably the biggest thing. It's been the closest thing that I've personally seen to a Zillow lead. And from a conversion perspective, I was explaining this to a client the other day. I said, there's kind of two trains of thought. You go down the PPC route, you go down the YouTube ads route. The PPC route is okay, we generate 100 leads. We have, 10 to 15 good conversations. We might get 1 to 3 sales. Well, that, that's good, but that's a lot of conversations, and the vast majority of agents can't handle 100 leads a month because they're driving, they're doing other things, writing offers.
A lot of follow-up. It's a lot of follow-up.
Ton of follow-up. So, and then I said, with YouTube, what we're seeing is the lead costs are more, but rather than it being 100 leads, it's 10 to 15 leads, 6 to 7 good conversations, 1 to 3 sales. That's more manageable for a real estate agent. We're seeing about the cost per acquisition for a YouTube lead, and they're sellers as well. They're homeowners.
Right. It's at least one transaction, but it could be two transactions, or it could be one transaction plus a referral fee out of your area, which is cool because then you get to build a relationship with somebody else in a different location, which is always nice. So
and we're finding like cost per acquisition is roughly around $1,200 to about $2,000 per acquisition of a client, which, you know, depending on your market, like if you're in a market that's 700,000-800,000, like, you know, you're making 15.
If you're in a $500,000 market and you get a 2% kick, right? Let's say you're not really good at getting a good commission. You get a 2% kick. That's 10 grand.
Yeah.
And you spend 20% of it on your upfront ad spend. Dude,
not
that
including
is
the back end stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, to list a 500K home, you got like $500 in photography, maybe a couple $100 in designing, maybe $1,000 in staging costs if you go all that out. So let's call it, you're all in for, you know, even let's say it's 50%. So you're all in for $5,000 and you make $5,000, but on the back end, they buy a $600,000 home and let's say you get another 2% on that, or let's say it's even 1.5%, right? Like, let's just say you're not able to negotiate with this new world that we're living in with buyers. Like that's a new conversation. So it's going to take you maybe a couple of months to get your conversation around commissions like really solid. So, you know, you made another 1.5% on the back of a $650,000 sale, which is $9K.
Yeah.
$9K. You made $15,000 on a $2,000 ad spend.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, sign me up all day long, bro. Like that is not bad math. And if you play your cards right and you do a good job and you do what Kyle talks about and you put them into your ecosystem and you learn some of the things that Kyle's going to bring to the table, that one client could have turned into 3 to 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 transactions when it's all said and done with friends, family, referrals. And maybe they're unable to afford their dream home now, but they're using buy, stay for a couple of years, lily pad kind of stepstone up. So they're buying and trading homes more frequently to get into the neighborhood they want. Because if you don't buy now, right, like I truly believe that if you can afford something and you're trying to wait for like the market to crash or for like the rates to come down and you haven't ever bought at a down market, you're not going to. So it's just better to buy now when it's high and scary than it is to buy when it's low and scary, because nobody buys when it's low and scary except for Warren Buffett. And that's why he's rich. Everybody else runs. So you're just going to wait for 2 or 3 more years, pay somebody else's mortgage. So like, I'm a firm believer that if you can buy now, you should. That again comes down to agents' ability to do what we're going to talk about in this episode.
So today on the podcast, we're going to be chatting about storytelling, and we're going to be chatting about how to actually build trust with storytelling. Today we have our good friend, Kyle Gray, who was connected to us through our friend, Frank Salas. And Kyle has a podcast. He has a book called The Story Engine. And today we're going to be chatting about like, how do we actually build trust in a world? Now, to give like kind of context, Kyle, can you kind of give us like the 60-second Cliff Notes version on kind of like who you are, how you got in the space, and like a little bit about you, so then we can kind of hop into like what agents can actually do to build trust in this world of storytelling?
Absolutely. Hey guys, thank you so much for having me here. The podcasting space this is one of my favorite things to do in the world, maybe obviously as a storyteller. And I have been practicing the art and craft of storytelling probably through most of my life in different ways. You guys are both living in Medellin. I spent a lot of my early mid-20s traveling through South America. I learned how to speak Spanish and Portuguese and express myself in different ways and in different languages, and learned how to be understood through that. I also, during that time, wanted to learn how to start a business that could allow me to continue to travel and experience the world like that. And over the course of a few years of trying to figure that out, I settled upon, or I got an opportunity to do content marketing for a startup and start to write stories of how the startup was growing, what was happening, how our remote team around the world was working together, and slowly started trading this skill up through writing blog posts to writing books. And I eventually found people were speaking from the stage, telling their story from the stage in a way that could attract their ideal clients, that could overcome objections while they were speaking from the stage, so that people would just come to them ready to go. And this reminded me of another part of my life when I was younger, of performing. I've got a guitar just kind of on the other side of this computer, and I was certain I wanted to be a singer-songwriter for a long time. And now seeing how to craft a story from the stage, how to share who I am, I get to tap into what I really wanted to create in those kind of teenage rock star days, but in a way that makes a real impact, is aligned with me, and leaves the world better based on who I'm helping.
So when we're thinking about storytelling in a space that is very different than what it was, call it 15 years ago now, where we didn't really have an opportunity to tell our story the way we have an opportunity to tell our story today. We didn't have, Instagram was just kind of coming on the scene. Facebook was still there, but we still didn't use these platforms in a way in order to kind of tell the end consumer, tell the buyers and the sellers who it is that we are. And I think that with that transition of around storytelling, people, there's two ends of the spectrum. There's the end of the spectrum where it's people are overboard with their storytelling, and there's the end of the spectrum where people don't even know where to start. So let's start there. How does a real estate agent actually even tell their story? What does that process look like to actually get the confidence to actually tell that story online?
Is everybody, this happens with real estate agents, but this occurs with a certain genre of people that I work with, that they're known as people who are too smart for their own good. They've spent a lot of time immersing themselves in a certain language, in a certain skill set, in a certain world. And because of their deep immersion in this, it becomes difficult to communicate with the people that they need to communicate with. And the biggest problem that you're pointing out with is either I have too many stories or not enough stories, is that they don't know how to tell stories or why to tell stories and what the effect that we're intending to have. We know that they do a good thing and we know that we should tell them, but we don't actually recognize what we're trying to do, which is one of the reasons why people have such a hard time choosing a story to tell, or actually getting to any kind of interesting point when telling a story. I think we there was a few horror stories I hope we can get in, of people having no idea why they should be telling a story. Well,
why should people tell stories?
The first one, the most common reason somebody would tell a story, the most common story that people think of, I call it an authority story. It could be called an origin story. It's the how I got into the biz story. This is a really important story to tell. It can't do a wholesale for you, but what it can do is it can tell the person that's listening to you, hey, I understand exactly how you feel, and I've gone through a process to figure out what it is that you want, and I've gotten there faster with a shortcut, and I can get you there. And if we can communicate that to them within this story, and there's a few very simple things that we need to do it. It's just most people haven't taken the time to actually line things up like that.
So, one of the most, from an online social media perspective, I think that people will resonate with this question. Something we heard probably in 2017, 2018, was a guy who came onto the scene by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk said, document, don't create. And I think that took a life of its own in the online media space, where people are just, vlogging. But over the years, obviously storytelling via social media has changed. And I find people are now gravitating towards more of how do I impactfully tell this story, not just document it, but how do I actually create a story that has an arc. I guess what are your thoughts around documenting versus creating? How do you see that play out in the storytelling landscape of the current space of media right now?
Yeah.
I don't even know the difference, honestly, dude. When he says document your journey and whatever, I've seen Gary multiple times on stages. I don't know what that actually means.
I would say like document is I'm talking about what I'm doing in my business behind the scenes, like, and then creating would be intentionally thinking of a post that I want to write about that's doing something. So it's not showing exactly what I'm doing, but I'm making something different. And I think either of those are good. It depends on who you are. I would say that thinking about a real estate agent, documenting way over creating, like checking out places, maybe I'm not exactly, all of the things in the process, things that you discover, what could be interesting and what could emphasize you and your unique, like what value you add. But I think having a few well-refined stories to be able, or understanding the structures of stories, is going to enable you to talk about what you're documenting in a way that's useful. And right now in the marketplace, what I see is that we're in an unprecedented time of noise. And I think this is going to particularly impact real estate agents. AI where one brilliant person used to be able to produce maybe 10 SEO blog posts in a week. Now this thing can produce 1,000. It's absolute quantity beast. There's no way you can out quantity this thing. And so how can you be more human, appear more human, have more quality, not just be based on this algorithm? So the more that you can shine through and create an emotional experience, an emotional human connection between you and your potential clients, the more they're going to come back to you, the more they're going to refer to you. And yeah, just if you're trying to go any kind of direction that AI is going to be able to win in volume, then you have to create quality connections with what you're creating.
I call this winning before you arrive, right? So like inside, right, at the end of the day, it's still a belly to belly game, right? Like all the social media in the world means nothing if we can't get them to a DM, and if we can't get that DM to a phone call, a Zoom call, or a belly to belly coffee meeting, right? Like at the end of the day, we still need to be in real life with humans in order to buy and sell real estate for the most part. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yes. Are there some agents who have kind of rigged the algorithm? Yes. But at the end of the day, I call this winning before you arrive, right? Like, how do you sell the appointment for the prospect to be there? And if you don't have any content online, and it's shocking to me how many real estate agents I personally, and I'm a damn good internet stalker. I cannot find anything on these people, bro. Like, I'm telling you, dude, like their Realtor.com pages are empty. Their Zillow pages are empty. Their Google My Profile pages are empty. You go to their social media, they have, 12 posts a year. It's empty, right? There is just nothing out there. And to me, right, and I'd like to know what your take on it, a bad story is still better than no story, because if you don't practice with bad stories, one, you're never going to get good with good ones. People are not going to know who you are. And if they don't know who you are at least a little bit, like, is that worse? Because here's what I hear from agents all the time. Well, I'm not good on camera like you, Vic. Well, I just got my 950th post badge yesterday on YouTube. We got 1,000 videos on our new YouTube channel, which doesn't include the 8 years prior on the 3 or 4 other channels that don't exist of me sucking. And I still think like I'm okay, but I'm not great. How do we help? Because it's not, the people that are out there, like we just had a guy on last week, Kyle Connor, he's crushing the game, crushing the game, right? He's able to convert. He's able to get people that want to work with him right off his social. He doesn't actually have to have a ton of conversations. He's so good that he's just crushing the game, but he's got a really unique niche. He's a white Canadian dude that can speak Punjabi and it's pretty attractive because I was excited to talk to him. And I'm like, bro, I found this guy online. We got to get him on, right? Like, I pursued him like I was going after like a hot date, right?
Yeah.
Because I thought he had a really interesting niche. But like, for those people who don't, or they don't think they do, and so, or they don't think they're good enough and they do nothing, would you say, just to start out before we get into like a better process of how to create stories, would you say a bad story is better than no story?
So is a bad client worse than no clients?
Just depends on how many clients you have, right?
So I would say I want to say yes and I want to say no. And I guess it depends on how the story is bad, because telling any kind of story and being bad and like the process that you illustrated for going through many different channels, the many different reps, you have to suck in the beginning. And so, like telling a bad story in that way, 100% get out there and get your hands dirty and get better over time. Of course, the first thing that you do is not going to be that good if you're moving in the right direction. So we can accept that and move on. And another element of storytelling is tapping into your vision and your value, which allows you to bear what was once unbearable for the content, because you're doing it for a bigger vision, something outside of you, a purpose. If we're telling a story that is serving the wrong purpose and attracting bad clients into our business, then you're not going to last very long.
You know, it's really interesting, you know, like what came to mind recently. So we had this, I had a designer on staff who was doing like a series of different types of videos a while back, and we called it Inspector Dad. And it was a really hit. It was a massive hit with a lot of the agents that, you know, and we had a lot of agents that were coming to us, and they would say, like, specifically, we found your agency through this series that you went through. And I think that what ends up happening is you can, and like, I'm curious how you stay in that storytelling mindset, because I find I go through ebbs and flows with storytelling. Like, you know, even somebody that posts a lot of content, like you can post a lot of content, and we talk about the documenting, and it might resonate with a certain group of people, but how do you like free flow the ideas to kind of stand out from the crowd? Like they're like I don't know, Vic, did you see Matt Lionetti's video recently about
where
the
he was
house?
all emotional.
Oh my goodness. Was it ever good? Like it was probably one of the best pieces of content I've seen in a really, really long time. Are you guys cool if I share it? Can we share it really quick on this podcast?
Yeah.
I think this will,
you know, just share the first maybe like 45 seconds.
Yeah, let's do this.
We'll drop a link. We'll have our team drop a link to it as well.
Hi, my name is 47 Bennington Heights Drive, but you can call me Benny. And this is my family. Michael, Sarah, and Claire. You see, we've been a family for years, and we've been through it all together. From our first dinner, to our first movie night, first night home from the hospital, first birthday, first game of tag, first snow day, first day of kindergarten, first day of high school, first rough day, first exam, first fight, first apology, first driving lesson, first prom. There's been a lot of firsts, but I never thought about any of the lasts. When Claire got into college, I was so proud. She had worked hard all of these years, and I knew she was destined for amazing things. But with Claire gone, the rest of my family needs to start their next chapter as well. They would have loved.
I'm getting emotional.
Yeah.
But I need to stay here.
Like,
I will always cherish our memories we made together.
One of the best stories that I think I've one of the best story videos I've seen.
I can't wait to meet my new family. I promise I will give you all of my love. You'll feel it as soon as you walk through the door. So, come say hi. 47 Bennington Heights Drive. But you can call me Benny.
So, one of the, like, from a property perspective, and I'm curious, like, your thought process around this, Kyle. Like, you know, thinking about the story engine, like Matt's great. They have broke agent media. They do a lot of cool stuff in the space. Like, how does like an agent set themselves apart via storytelling? That's my example of like a really great story about a property. How do we get out of this documenting world and actually start to create something that actually resonates with the end consumer?
Great question. And there's a lot of ways that we can approach this. What was really happening in that video is that they were talking about what's valuable to the customer. They understood that it wasn't about a house or an interest rates or a HELOC or whatever the things are, that they were in this for all of the things that came after. And they were speaking to that. And this is a lesson that we can apply universally to our communication. That's what our clients want to hear from us. And we don't necessarily need a really touching video with a piano music to get us there. But we can apply that knowledge to everything that we do. That's what they want. So yes, the HELOC is important, and we'll talk about that and get through that. But this is what we should be aiming for. And how do we aim for that? How do we know what to talk about? How do we fill out our content calendars, or what do we start to speak to, and create this feeling? And so let's bring in the idea of the proprietary process right now. This is a way that we can a system, a way that we can separate ourselves and create a unique flavor for what we do. So a proprietary process has a great benefit-driven name. It's how you do what you do. And I'll give you a few examples in a sec. And then it has a few different steps, maybe 3 to 5 steps or pillars that emphasize what's unique about you. Somebody I introduced to you guys, I hope he comes on the show soon. He'll be a blast. David Perez. We've been working with his proprietary process and building a talk around it. He has 3 steps: keep, grow, protect. He's a tax expert. And so first step, how to keep more of what you're normally paying. 2, how to take what you're keeping and put that into tax leveraged investments so you pay less taxes and get return on investment. And then 3, protect it with good trusts, good systems, good things, so that it doesn't get taken away or out of your control. And so he uses this system to say, this is my process that goes much deeper than just filing a tax return once a year. This is a strategy to build wealth. And it makes him, in a tax preparer world, unique and powerful. And the way that I just laid it out to you in a few simple, with a nice title name and a little sentence to follow it up, you know exactly what all is involved. And so real estate agents can do this too, depending on what your advantage is or what you highly value. So this will change depending on your client. If you sell to families, if you sell to second-time vacation home buyers, if you're selling to first-time home buyers, they probably value and want different things. And, maybe a real estate agent who's really good with taxes can frame, the tax advantaged house versus the person who is all about family and good location to be like, maybe they believe that location is way more important than even like what's inside the house. And so I'm going to help you find the best spot. And even if it's not the exact house you pictured, I promise you that you're going to be happier in the long term in this neighborhood because of this. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just giving different examples of how you can emphasize your strengths.
As you're talking, because Cody and I are going through some things right now where we're both in foreign countries, and we need to make sure that our companies are set up properly with some tax liabilities as we are embarking on this longer time here in Latin America. And I was thinking like, man, that guy could be a great potential asset for us to talk to. I was like, because you're right. Like most tax preparers, the person I've used for the last few years, she's like, hey, I filed your this, I filed your that, oh, I filed your extension. Okay, hey, book in a time and we'll talk about X, Y, and Z. But we've never had that like in-depth conversation, right? It's not that she doesn't do it, but I don't look at her as that person. I just look at her as the person who does, my counseling at the end of the year and tells me, hey, I need this, I need that, I need this, and not the person that is going to create that
the proactive
longevity.
I've got to just interject for the magic that's just happened. What you were just saying, like, I didn't realize I never had that better conversation with my tax professional. That is exactly the thought that we have designed this for you to think. And that is the effect that we want to have on our clients. Thinking what you just did, I've never thought of it that way. Damn, I should talk to this person. That's what we're going for here. And it's possible for everybody listening in to talk about what you do in a way that creates that effect too. And that's what the proprietary process is. Yeah. And here's the magical thing that 98% people get wrong. Why did the way I described that process work? And it's because I used descriptive language versus prescriptive language. Everybody likes to use prescriptive language. Here's what you have to do to get the thing. Here's how you get abs. You do sit-ups every day. You go to the pantry. You throw away the crackers and you go for a run. But we want to talk about what you experience after you've done the things, what you get at the end. And we want every step to be a milestone that we can see and feel and experience the progress, not the work that we have to do.
Yeah. Tony Robbins describes this as, most people, when they say, what do? They say, I'm a real estate agent. But that's what you do, but that's not who you are. Like, explain who you are. I am the person that helps you with X, Y, and Z, kind of like what you just did. And when you do that, right, it changes the way the person associates you with the profession that you've chosen, right? Like, if I just say I'm a sales trainer, people are like, oh, I don't want sales. No, but I help you create language patterns so that you can create the financial security and stability that you want in your life so that you can have the life that you want, right? So you're not going on the roller coaster of commissions, 1 month good, 2 months bad, and that stress, right? And when people hear that, they're like, oh, yeah, that actually sounds like my life. Probably could tighten that up a lot, but,
start. So Kyle, as we wrap up here today, where is like kind of the best place that, we can send people if they want to have a conversation with you about your book, your podcast, they want to learn a little bit more about what you do? Where's kind of the best place that you can direct them in order to kind of learn a little bit more about the story? And
you can go to my website, thestoryengine.co. You can check out podcasts where I'm creating stories live with experts and thought leaders every week. I have lots of long-form blog posts on storytelling, and you can find me on Instagram. It sounds like you guys were talking a lot about Instagram at Hey Kyle Gray, or I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn as well. And just to close out really quickly, the power of these stories not only changes how your audience responds to you, but as you get clearer on who you are, why you're different, and start thinking about the real value you provide, it changes the choices that you make. And it allows you to step up and be bolder and really claim yourself in a new way. This is a common rite of passage for anybody doing their own thing, going on their own journey, to claim your own value through your story and to be able to express that confidently is the most transformative process you can go through, no matter what your entrepreneurial journey is. So thank you for having me. Thanks for letting me share this. It's been a blast.
You guys take a second and write down 1 or 2 things while it's fresh in your mind. Take a second and write. We do this with our clients. Don't leave a space of learning without taking some sort of action that you want to implement. So write down 1 or 2 things that you learned. Maybe it's something, Alex Hormozy says a lot of us don't need to learn new things. We just need to be reminded of things that we already know and then take action on them. So take a second before you go on to your next activity, write a couple of things that Kyle shared. And yeah, man, love it.
I want to say thank you for tuning into another episode of the RE Agent Podcast. You listen back on iTunes, you listen back on Spotify. We ask that you leave us a review. We don't monetize these things. We just ask that you leave a review, because it helps us reach more agents. And if you have an agent in your office that is trying to figure out how to better tell their story online, share this podcast with them. If you listen on YouTube, click the subscribe button. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for tuning in to the Our Agent Podcast. We'll see you soon.